From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
The state is getting ready for the midterm election, which is only 5 days away. After the primary election problems, voters are weary heading into Tuesday. We talked to experts about the security of your ballot tonight.
As the migrant caravan from Central America draws nearer to the U.S., the president weighs in on immigration and deploys more troops to the southern border.
Texting and driving is illegal in some parts of the state, but not everywhere in Arizona. We look into the varying policies across the state tonight.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm John Cardinelli.
And I'm Samantha Lomibao. Thank you for joining us. We have breaking news concerning the race to replace Jeff Flake in the U.S. Senate.
According to 12 News, Party candidate Angela Green is dropping out of the race and throwing her support to Democrat Kyrsten Sinema, not Republican Martha McSally.
Green was polling at about 6% of the vote in very tight race. Her name, though, will still be on the ballot, and thousands have already voted.
Election day is 5 days away, and voters across the state are voting early in record numbers for the midterm election. More than 1.3 million ballots have already been processed by the state. That's as much as 63% of ballots expected to be cast in this record-setting election. Looking at the red and blue shaded district maps on the ballot registration on those early returns, a top analyst with the Secretary of State's office notes that women now represent more than 57% of the Democratic early ballots. And those ballots are also pushing their precincts farther into the swing areas of Maricopa County. He also notes that Republican ballots did gain back some ground in northeast Tucson after a large influx of Democrat ballots yesterday.
But what about voters who go to the polls on Election Day after recent stories of Georgia and Texas where people claimed voting machines had actually switched their votes? Should voters here be worried about the security of the election? Monty Stevens in our Washington bureau talked with some experts.
Cybersecurity experts say the threat of tampering with an election is real, and election officials insist that your vote is secure. So who's right? Turns out they all are. University of Michigan computer scientist J. Alex Halderman makes election hacking look easy.
Benedict Arnold won because the malware that...
The fear of election tampering has been in the headlines since the 2016 election. But some experts say with that fear comes a more subtle threat.
2016 was a big wake-up call. That's when we collectively learned that, yes, in fact, there are foreign governments that are interested in changing our elections, but also trying to erode voter confidence.
A 2018 Unisys Security Index report on U.S. attitudes on election integrity seemed to back that up. It said 86% of people reported some level of concern about compromised voting systems. To Homeland Security Under Secretary Christopher Krebs, that fear is almost as much as a threat as hacking.
Gets into your head, gets into my head as a voter, and gets us doubting the integrity of the process.
That same Unisys survey included some people who said they might not vote because of election integrity concerns. Turner said the threats of election interference are real and should not be ignored.
Threats are always changing. The tools are always getting better as well as cheaper, and there are always going to be new motivations for trying to get into a system to either destroy the information or to change it.
But neither should the threat to voter confidence.
If we can focus on securing our elections for this midterm as well as future elections with the idea that voter confidence is the thing that we need to be most concerned about, we'll be much better off.
When asked today during a press conference, President Donald Trump said that he is confident in the upcoming election and that it will be perfect and safe. And officials with the Arizona Secretary of State's office says they're in a good spot for Tuesday. In Washington, Imani Stevens, Cronkite News.
Who you vote for can remain a secret, but your voting record cannot. And that public information is leading to a wave of get-out-the-vote mailings, and even some new apps that allow you to track the voting habits of your friends, family, and even your neighbors. Cronkite News reporter Tanaya Williamson has the details.
Many people don't realize that records with a person's voting history, not who they vote for, but whether they voted, are public record. And so are mail-in ballot requests. Campaigns get and use that data to target frequent voters, but apps like Vote With Me can scan your phone contacts and urge you to text your friends and family if they haven't voted in the last few elections.
So originally, I don't see a problem with these voter report cards, but I think that has to do with the fact that I vote.
So that information is floating around on the different applications. And so this just makes it accessible to everybody, that they could use that information and ask their friends. So it brings it kind of down to the ground.
The new app, Vote With Me, is sponsored by a series of mostly Democratic voter advocacy groups. It claims to help you identify your friends who need a little extra encouragement to get to the polls by checking out their record and sending pre-written texts. But the effort isn't only online. Mailers from an organization called the Voter Participation Center go out to homes across the valley. It can identify your neighbors who haven't voted consistently.
Like on an app, you would know, who your friend was, but this was going out kind of in an unsafe way. I would feel unsafe if I had that at my door.
But where some see fear, others see a source of pride.
So, when I get these report cards, it just reaffirms that I'm doing my part and I'm trying to be heard and, doing what I can do to make a difference in my area.
Both the app and the mailers do contain disclaimers that their databases may contain errors or be outdated. And we here in the Cronkite newsroom have checked a few of those records where that seems to be the case. You can request to be removed from mailing lists, but so far there's no easy opt-out when it comes to your information being distributed on the app. In the Broadcast Center, Tanaya Williamson, Cronkite News.
As elections approach, Phoenix groups are rallying against the Trump administration's proposal to define one's gender at birth. 13 groups ranging from churches to LGBTQ support groups to the Maricopa County Democratic Party are hosting the We Exist and We Vote rally to fight for transgender rights.
People to vote, to be honest. People to get there and to be impacted in a way that maybe they weren't before. To see individuals that are actually being affected, not ideas of what we look like as individuals or as humans, but just to see that we are everyday people who exist.
The We Exist and We Vote rally is happening tomorrow at 1 p.m. It will take place at the Arizona State Capitol.
President Trump spoke about immigration at the White House earlier today, saying that the migrant caravan approaching the U.S. southern border is like an invasion. Trump says migrants are abusing the asylum system and making a mockery of immigration laws, and he plans to call for new limits on asylum claims. In the speech, President Trump said the caravan is not a group of innocent people.
These are tough people in many cases. A lot of young men, strong men, and a lot of men that maybe we don't want in our country. But again, we'll find that out through the legal process. But they've overrun the Mexican police, and they've overrun and hurt badly Mexican soldiers.
Trump also said that he plans to sign an executive order related to immigration next week, but did not give any further details. Immigration has been a main focus of his as the midterm election draws near.
In some parts of Arizona, texting and driving is banned, but in other parts it isn't. Coming up on Cronkite News, we take a look at distracted driving laws across the state.
Plus, state football championship wins could bring a lot more than trophies to a school's community. We talk to 5-time state champions about the financial impact of the wins when we come back.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
This election day, depend on Cronkite News for coverage on Arizona's hotly contested midterm races. Learn more about the candidates and propositions in Arizona's ballots on cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Watch live on Election Day at 5 p.m. on Arizona PBS with the latest as Arizonans hit the polls. Then join us at 8 p.m. on Facebook Live and on Arizona PBS World for live coverage and reactions to the results.
Uber drivers will now be able to pursue higher education paid for by the company. A new partnership between the ride-sharing app and Arizona State University was announced today and will give free tuition to drivers and their families. In order to be eligible for this pilot program, drivers will need to have at least 3,000 rides and have a platinum or diamond status. An applicant can earn an ASU online degree or go through a continuing education program online. Drivers can also choose to transfer the opportunity to a family member, such as a spouse, sibling, or domestic partner. The program will launch in 8 places, including Phoenix, Denver, Chicago, Seattle, New Orleans, Orlando, Tampa, and New Jersey.
Arizona is one of 2 states without a texting and driving law to restrict drivers from using their phones behind the wheel. But there are more than 15 jurisdictions in the state that have passed their own ordinances in an effort of curbing this behavior. Reporter Micah Bledsoe has more on what local officials want from the state.
But the truth is, it doesn't happen to you until it happens to you, and then it's too late.
Brendan Lyons, a former firefighter, saw accidents caused by distracted driving while on the job. In Arizona, more than 58,000 accidents in 2017 were related to a driver being distracted behind the wheel, according to a report by the Arizona Department of Transportation. He started Look, Save a Life in 2012 and began working with local officials to pressure state legislators to enact laws keeping people off their cell phones. 3 years later, Lyons was struck by a distracted driver while biking.
Not only did I have a 2-year rehabilitation from cognitive therapy, physical, occupational therapy, but it sent me in a new direction. I was no longer going back. My neurosurgeons were saying, hey, Brendan, you're not going back to your career as a firefighter. So it sent me in a completely other direction.
He says laws to stop distracted driving are necessary to help curb this behavior. Senator Karen Fann worked on the bill passed in July targeting teens.
We want to make sure that we keep our roads safe without being too overbearing on a lot of the bureaucracies.
The law prohibits drivers younger than 18 from using wireless devices while holding their learner's permit and during the first 6 months of their provisional license as a secondary offense.
For teenagers only, I personally think it's the wrong message. Nobody should be texting while driving, but it is a start.
Rolly Simmons is the chairman of the Yavapai County Board of Supervisors. The county adopted a hands-free ban as a primary offense.
November 2nd, Yavapai will become the 3rd county in Arizona to propose and pass its own hands-free ordinance aimed at ending texting and driving.
We were waiting and wanting the state to do something that is their responsibility, not ours. But because of their failure to act, this board is going to take on the action.
Prescott City Mayor Greg Mingarelli says given the city's location within Yavapai County, they did something similar to make it easy for his region to understand just how serious the issue is.
We felt like this is dangerous enough out on the road that we need to make it a primary offense to really curb the behavior.
Senator Fann says it is a statewide concern that we have uniform and consistency across the state for residents and tourists in the next few years.
The thing you learn down here at the Capitol is you can't always throw a touchdown every time. Sometimes you have to just move that ball down the field. And this is one of those cases.
Until Arizona passes a statewide measure, Lyons says he will continue working with local jurisdictions to prevent more accidents.
That is not just because of wrong-way drivers. That is not just because of DUIs. There's a greater reason, and that great reason, 94% of all crashes is a direct result of human error.
In Yavapai County, Micah Bledsoe, Cronkite News.
The city of Prescott passed their hands-free ordinance at a meeting last week. Officials say more cities will likely continue to pass similar laws to encourage the state to adopt a law that creates consistency between cities.
Over 1 million Toyotas are being recalled worldwide due to an issue with the airbags. According to the recall, the airbags deploy without a crash or they fail to deploy in one. The recall covers about 17,000 Scion XA vehicles in the U.S. from 2005 to 2006. Owners will be notified next month, and dealers will replace the airbag control unit if you take your car in.
A new Scottsdale art exhibit gives you the opportunity to interact with the art.
Coming up on Cronkite News, we talk to a local artist who is using his interactive pieces to educate the community.
It's a beautiful day outside. Hopefully you didn't eat too much candy last night to enjoy it. Stay tuned after the break for more.
Cronkite News, weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
Water, light, and sound are all coming together to create art along the Scottsdale waterfront. Scottsdale Public Art is hosting its Canal Convergence next week, which is a 10-day interactive art exhibit in and around Scottsdale's canals. Reporter Jimmy Jackson takes a look at how one artist is educating the community on how his piece works.
He asked us to go out and, make recordings and email that to him. And also, so today I literally had my phone with me for more than an hour as I went through all these morning things.
And those recordings made by Linda Inger will be used by artist Ryan Edwards. He held a workshop to show art lovers how his artwork is created and will be featured at this year's Canal Convergence. The event is a collaboration between Scottsdale Public Art and the Salt River Project to create an immersive experience combining water, light, and art. The art installation that Edwards will feature at the exhibit also adds sound to that combination.
It's called sound sculpture, and I consider it a location-aware musical instrument. So each of the cubes reports its coordinates in space back to my computer. So wherever you move those cubes in space will actually change the melodic notes.
Edwards says that he set his sights on sound sculpture 4 years ago, and it took him a year to build. He says interactive art like this is all about allowing people the freedom to explore the piece and letting their interest make them want to ask questions about how it works.
A lot of my job is kind of standing by and watching people play with it, and then waiting for people to start to ask me questions or start to get curious, whether they figured it out or whether they have questions about how it works, or technically or artistically, or all kinds of things.
The workshop was a short crash course on how the art integrates technology and the sampling of sounds, so when they actually experience the sound sculpture, they will know exactly how it works.
I saw the video that they were showing, stills of when they were setting up the guts of the light cubes and all the technology that goes out. And they've been working on developing this software and hardware, and it's art and technology. That's what's so cool about it.
Edwards says interactive art gives him the ability to engage people and create music without weeks of lessons to help people understand it.
It's a long-standing concept of just participation, of bringing people together, kind of like changing the idea of art being something that is just like really passive for the viewer to something that's active for our participant.
The sound sculpture will be one of many large-scale interactive pieces at Canal Convergence. In Scottsdale, Jimmy Jackson, Cronkite News.
Canal Convergence is in its 6th year now, and people will be able to attend the free art show from November 9th until the 18th.
It's the first day of November, and it is finally starting to cool down.
You know, Sammy, it really is. When I went outside this morning, it was quite chilly. Let's check in with Micah in the Weather Center to see if we can expect it to stay cool this weekend.
We can expect it to stay cool this weekend. Right now, we're experiencing temperatures at 77 degrees in Phoenix. Out in California, San Francisco is experiencing 79 degrees, so it's beautiful out there. We have been experiencing some cool days, which is why you guys can see on this radar that the clouds are moving south out of Arizona. So it's been a little cloudy and windy, but that's not too much. It was a little humid this morning, so that's why we're looking at our water vapor for the last 24 hours. High temperatures for tomorrow, 82 degrees in Phoenix, so it'll be a nice warm day, a little bit warmer than we are here today. Out in the west, we have 80s and low temperatures for tomorrow. 57 in Phoenix, 40 in Page. Grab a coat, please, because it is freezing up there tomorrow. Over the weekend, you guys can expect temperatures to be nice. We're going to experience some temperatures in the 80s and lows in the high 50s. In the Cronkite Weather Center, Micah Bledsoe.
Winning the state football championship for a high school could raise the school's prestige, morale, and state funding.
Coming up on Cronkite News, the financial impact of a winning team drawing huge crowds when we come back.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Championships are the goal for any high school football program, but sustained success brings more than just a gold trophy. Reporter Anthony Totri has the story.
The Saguaro SaberCats are no stranger to success, winning 5 straight state championships with a 6th in progress.
It's pretty easy just because once you have that feeling of winning a state championship, there's no feeling like it, so you're willing to work as hard as it takes to win the other ones.
As Saguaro consistently remains one of the top programs in the state, head coach Jason Mons knows what this team does for the school.
You know, when you've got a good football team that's playing in big games and winning big games, and there's rivalries and there's excitement, the students show up to support the team, they spend time together, and I think it builds a school spirit.
But a handful of championship trophies and an in-state winning streak extending years back does more than just earn fans and support. It earns money.
The thing that people don't look at is when you have people that open enroll and come to the school from out of district, it brings more money into this district. And we have had a lot of kids that have come to this program from outside of our boundaries.
Transfers are a part of any successful football program, but their contributions go beyond the field. When a student transfers out of district from one jersey to another, then per pupil spending comes into play, which is the amount of money allocated per student. In 2017, a report from the state government concluded that Arizona's total spending per student was $9,653.
And each kid has a value over their head about how much each one is worth.
While transfers bring in a good chunk of funds, so do the ticket sales, concessions, and other aspects of having giant crowds on Friday nights. But for the athletes, coaches, and administration, it's not always about the money.
They come in, but it's not something where they just come in to get what they want. They come in and they become a part of the family almost immediately.
A portion of the money does get pumped back into the program, and it's evident in Saguaro's new $2 million turf field and the renovations to the weight room over the last few years. In Scottsdale, Anthony Totri, Cronkite News.
With high school football playoffs right around the corner, Saguaro could rewrite history yet again if they're able to capture their 6th straight state title.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, we'll hear about Proposition 420 in Scottsdale, a measure that would protect the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve. And how much is the internet responsible for actions by extremists? It's the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, on the ballot in Maine, a tax on high wage earners to help pay for health care for the elderly and those with disabilities. That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.